people like calling them pressure groups. I think these are borrowed ideas, but for me, I think we should rather leave it at a platform in one sense. It's open, and we want to allow as many people come in, but we also want to gather as many ideas before maybe with time we compound it into one cassock and then turn it, ideological cassock, and then turn it into maybe a political party.
Okay, that is somewhat beautiful. Of course, I brought him in because I wanted you to confirm that in the studios, of course, we already have him, and of course, he's here to share with us the in-depth analysis, of course, of the renewed Uganda manifesto, and not forgetting, of course, the future of Uganda. One thing that I would like actually to say is congratulations upon being nominated. It's not easy. Out of 87 people, 87 Ugandans who wanted and even showed interest, went and picked forms. You're among the 11. Congratulations.
Thank you very much. You could also talk about the many hassles that we go through. You know very well I had 2 months in Ruzira. Of course, this is because I have had almost 2 years and other many years in under restrictions and under house arrest. But also, most importantly, I had a lot of persecution and harassment from the police about, I'm told, what are otherwise my views. But we've operated in these circumstances. Maybe I may give one reason why we must continue to run in these rather very difficult circumstances. It is because we believe the election period is a heightened temperature where people must do more listening. Ugandans, they do more listening during elections than they will ever do in other circumstances. So, whereas it does not appear to make sense that we are persisting, the singular reason I can give is that this is when we attract the biggest attention. I think calling it singular limits it. There is also that we get a platform. I don't know if I would have been your best candidate. I don't know why you even didn't invite me on the Pan-African debate. But I may not have been your best candidate for this morning to invite here if I was not a presidential candidate. And then maybe most importantly, when I say singular, I really limited myself. Most importantly, I want to be on record, not to escort anybody, because we've been associates in a revolution, which revolution has lost its way, and we continue escorting this person in wrong. Or like Martin Luther said, be quiet when everything is going wrong. Because according to him, those who oppress the black people in America, who he was fighting for, are as bad as those who keep quiet when the situation is getting so bad. So maybe that should really crystallize why we continue to be seen to be in this race despite everything, to be very honest. You can imagine this electioneering process, even putting your head up to say hello to people in Nakawa amounts to tear gas. If you try to stop somewhere and say wave to people during an election period and you've been duly nominated, then you attract so many rough-edged, actions like we had with Bobby Wine. And then because you have to go and correct your documents from your office to assemble yourself for nomination, you attract so much unacceptable circumstances as Amriat, who is called Power, had to go through. Now, this is now what we call an election, where you are supposed to meet the population of the Republic of Uganda, 17 million voters, within 60 days, covering 146 districts. This is an election where you cannot even address more than 70 people in a particular singular meeting. This is an election which was supposed to be virtual, and I am very grateful that you called me here. The airwaves in a virtual election, or what they call digital, are simply booked by one political party. party. Even advertising space is fully occupied and booked. When you try to make a telephone call, they tell you, "Oh, will you compete with NRM's price of 7 million?" That is just a billboard. Now, then Ugandans ask one question: Tumukunde, renewed Uganda, why are you in this? I am in this for the reasons I have spelled out. Okay. Nothing should tell you that I feel that this is an election. I don't, but I also want to be on record that even in the worst of circumstances, we must continue to be seen to be fighting and to be offering every option to Ugandans. And that's why, before you allow me to wind up this important topic, I want to call on Ugandans, the Republic of Uganda, that for once, this is one of the most important elections we've ever had. Like we had the one after 1962, we had the one 1981, which made a U-turn in the politics of Uganda, and now we have another important elections with similarities that are so highlighted. Similarities that pitch this election to the 1980 election. No freedoms, very rough-edged treatment of candidates. You know, when President Museveni was arrested at Chireka, it was a big story. We who were his supporters really felt terrible. And we said, what kind of government is it? That's 1980. Now you are talking about 2020. Largely quite a number of years. And the circumstances seem to be the same. Candidates are not only arrested, but in this particular case, it is actually bigger than it was then. You are not only arrested, you are placed in custody with very unacceptable charges. You know how many times I've been in court, and I'm pending, I'm sure, many other presences in court. So, Ugandans, for once, should come out and liberate themselves.
All right.
We shall not be there to tell them the story. They will not hear our views because we do not have an opportunity.
They should be part of
that calls on them. That singularly and in community-based enthusiasm, they should come out and defend themselves and cause the change that they so much deserve.
All right, I would like to say that all of you are catching us from wherever you're catching us from. Today we're so much delighted, of course, to have the man himself, the giant of the land, that is General Tumukunde, with us in the studios. And of course, he's here to share with us the future. He has already given you actually a bit of it into the future of Uganda. So we'll be taking a short commercial break. When we get back, we will be expounding on the detail of his manifesto and what he thinks for a better Uganda. Very good morning.
Yellow beat.
It's a 4G remix. Double sin. Twice upon a time, I got my phone. I put him busy, and then I said, I have time with it. So I called my friend. Fast car. Did you know? Did you?
Yes, it's MTN at 00, the 4G remix. Dial *150*10# or visit my MTN app to load daily bundles and double your MPs on your 4G line. Everywhere you go, MTN.
What? That means more fire! What is up? What's it that we need?
Everywhere you go, MTN.
As the country prepares for the 2021 elections,
Different political leaders have vowed to all not to defy odds.
Fight until the job is done or until I am done.
The nation, through different political parties, is in high political flair.
For us, we are going to support you with all our heads, with all our knowledge.
All this is coming up in the UG Polls 2021 from Monday to Friday, 2 p.m. on Record TV.
Welcome back from the break, and of course, we're glad you're still watching the Daybreaker show. And of course, here we are in what we call the UG Polls special, whereby we're discussing basically about Uganda's walk to 2021. But today, we are so much delighted in the studio to have General Tumukunde, Henry, yes, and he'll be actually sharing with us what we call the renewed Uganda manifesto and the future of Uganda. When we talk about a manifesto, we are talking about something that tickles an individual or a group of people to think about actually moving ahead to take on a particular role in order to see the change they wish to change. My manifesto can even have one point, but that point can be a big change to this country. It can even have 2 points or 3. It can have key areas that I feel, if I am given mandate, that I would love to work on. Even in the United States, they always ask you, the presidential candidates, what would you love to do in the first maybe 100 days or 200 days? What is the key area? What is that particular area, of course, that is touching you, that you feel you need to put right? But of course, before we go deeper, we would like to begin with the basics. General Tumukunde, who is Tumukunde? To a viewer, for example, from Capitol who's watching you right now, to a viewer who has always watched you and seen you in the army uniform before, who is General Tumukunde? They would love to understand. Is he a Ugandan? I'm seeing actually yesterday we were hosting Nobody Marrow here, and they were saying some people seem not to be Ugandan. So, who is General Tumukunde?
Well, first of all, I come from Rukunjiri district.
Oh.
This is the controversial district. That was the reason why President MUSEVENI ever made a mark in politics, because I remember we campaigned him under the command of Matthew Chikere that time, and we raised the most important, the biggest number of votes in Uganda. Rukunjiri is also largely, we are influenced by Christianity, at least in my own case. I'm a son of 2 Christian Barokore. I think the nearest translation, it can be unfair, 2 fundamentalists. And I lost one of them in 1964. So I've actually depended on my mother to understand what the issues are. Like when we get to Uganda's politics, I'll come out to say, we don't seem to be getting what the issues are. So, my message to women, I know you very well. I am who I am because of you. You need to understand that people who have soft spots for you will spend more time thinking about you. Women of Uganda, for once, forget about satisfying yourself with having been removed from the courtyard to the gate. And then when you reach the gate, what exactly happened? So that's part of my background. Every background, I'll page it on. Now, Christian background got a bit of interruption, but it was the basis. Discipline, waking up 5 o'clock to pray, having to give space to visitors who are called brethren. And of course, you know very well, I don't think the spaces. Okay, Rukunjiri had quite a lot of development, but I can also still tell you it was a 3 to 4 bedroom house. But sometimes, because the Warokore brethren would be coming for a convention, we ultimately had to give a lot of space out of our comfort. So that influences my discipline. It also influences my balanced thinking, because and even revolutionary traits. Because you can imagine Jesus Christ left here so many years ago, 2019 and 20 years ago. But you can imagine up to now, he has managed to create from 12 disciples, which 12 disciples did not have, you can imagine, education. The only person who was educated, when I see all the English you expound, and yet your ideological self is always struggling. I'm not talking about you, I'm talking about many Ugandans who speak more Ba language than what shapes a country. The important point I'm making here is that Jesus Christ, it was only Luca, Dr. Luke, and the man who joined them later, called Saul, who later on turned into Paul, who was a lawyer. Now, those, and because of them, Christianity is now 2 billion people. Now, when we pick that out of the Christianity bit, then we ask ourselves, why don't a number of Ugandans assemble, for example, to cause change in their country if they so need it? And I know they do. Whoever you talk to you to tells you change. So that's my Christianity and the fundamentals. Now then, go to the letter. Because of my sister was a teacher, so actually I have a special communication to teachers. I have lived with teachers, I don't know for how long. I think I know them better than anybody, I suppose. I know how they live, I know how they are paid, I know how they are really taken care of. But also, this moves me from my hometown, Rukunjiri, and I go to a place called Mbarara, Kakoba, where now the Bishop Stewart Koi demonstration, university is a few kilometers from Mbarara town. So I become largely urbanized. But also, most importantly, I become slightly more metropolitan. Yes, to the standards of Africa, Mbarara was a fairly reasonable sized town. Now, in the vicinity, the influence now becomes Islamic. Yes, that area of Kakoba, whereas actually the institution is Christian, the neighborhoods are largely Catholic. Islamic. So I even later on find an opportunity to teach in an Islamic school on voluntary basis, a primary school called Kakoba Muslim. Now, this also brings my other version. I am more broad and cast. Yes, actually I can interchange between my most original language called Ruhoro and interchange into Runyankore and interchange into Luganda, just because also that environment not only spoke Luganda, they also spoke Nubian. So the Nubians who came here supporting colonialists, who are now as soldiers, military men providing military services, who are now camped in Bombo and who are camped in Arua, I have a message for them. Kabarasunu, and it is because they know now that I had quite a rap with their language. So I was influenced there until I went to a secondary school out of my sister's influence, that I should not remain too near, people who treat, because I was the last born, who treat me mildly. So I went to Kabare Kigezi College Butobere. That is now a completely different, slightly different version of the Westerners. These are Wachiga, they speak straight, and I would want to remind our senior, because these are rare opportunities we can use, the old boys of Butobere, that it is now their turn, like Antari has had an opportunity. It is their turn to support me vigorously to make sure that, but I win this election. But also tap into the many people who speak that language, from Bunyoro up to Kisoro, and to remind them that I know them more than maybe many people do. Because even the neighborhoods in Rukunjiri, we live together. So now that brings me now to Kabari and among the Wachiga, and then that's where I shaped my academic self. Kutobere was a very good school. Actually, I can't call myself as having been a big performer according to Kutobere standards. Kutobere standards, 80 distinctions were a reality for so many students. Now, from there, I go to Kiburi, but largely staying in Mbarara area and sharing it between Rukunjiri and Mbarara, because my sister was always worried that my mother may not have been firm enough with me, especially on educational matters. But these are stories for later times.
Yes.
Now, I go to Kiburi. And now, yesterday, I was among the people of Kiburi, and we had a very, very good time there in Idi Amin's days. And I can tell you the influence was vivid, outright, glaring. Sometimes picking students there, sometimes being what. But again, I must also say we got favored. I remember my first interaction with Abaka Kachama Mayanja as the chairman of the, and many other people, including people who are now so highly pressed in this our government, and serving Uganda in different capacities. And maybe I should use this advantage to call on Kiburi, old boys, and those I interfaced with, to actually join me in this struggle, because I know them and I understand them. In the same circumstances, we found Kiburi really quite low in education standards. But again, we who didn't have very good recommendations on discipline. This man was a revolutionary called Wagwa Seguya. He was a brother of the late Kafumbe Mukasa. And actually, I have good connections with him because of the same reason, including some lady who I don't want to interfere with because she holds very sensitive offices. Now, they come from Butambara. So we had this Islamic influence from a fairly civilized human being, Wagwa Seguya. And we worked with him, teaching all levels, to actually develop the academics of Kiburi. So what the academics of Kiburi today are largely because of our contribution. We came from many schools. We would not make it to other schools because of, discipline issues, which discipline meaning had different views. Sometimes you hear President Museveni say discipline, meaning you don't agree with his views, so you are necessarily indisciplined. So we come to Kiburi and develop Kiburi and leave it actually a very promising school. And I praise Wagwa Seguya for actually remodeling Kiburi. But also, I thank Kiburi for exposing me to Islamic thinking. And the liberalness of the leadership there then was so inviting to others. For example, as young people, we used to go and share daku. You can imagine it was cooked for Muslims who will not have had lunch, but I can tell you that our Muslim brothers were always comfortable and then learning how other people live. It was so exposing, and at a time when the Islamic faith was actually in the comfort seat of government. But it also, had a message about. From there I went to Makerere. I think Makerere, we picked revolution. We picked...
Was it at Makerere University that joined the Uganda, the NRA?
Yes. No, now Makerere
Yes.
We form the Amin struggles. Sometimes everything is attributed to people who are outside. That's not true. I remember me, General Muntu, the Reti, Warije, Opio lawyer, I don't know, we had some loose association, which later on turned into UPM, DP alliance, and then strikes, and then many things. And then that's when President Museveni was so appealing to us. And he gave us a very good story about whether it's possible to change power using an election. That's why I need to continue to remind him about this because it's his record. I think his most outstanding record. And he convinced us that we become a group. We are a big group, of course. Other people collapsed on the way. I don't know, I have a heart problem. I don't know, I'm the only person who is educated in my family. And now, from there, I think the other school exposures is I did military courses in Nigeria, so I have quite a lot of relations with Nigeria. Many other places. I did my master's in Geneva, so I have quite a bit of connections with the Swiss. And they are very, very strict economic life, simple but strict. So, in short, then I got married. I have quite a number of children, and they've got different disciplines in their schooling. So, some are communicators, others are the one. And then, essentially, I joined the struggle. I think the story of the struggle is known. Maybe all I can tell you is that even in the struggle, we were sharp leaders against misuse of rights and maybe taking us to the wrong direction of the revolution.
Okay.
And I was a political commissar, an intelligence officer in the struggle. I think then the rest is what is most recorded.
All right. I would like to say that to all of you catching us, of course, we are here sharing about Renewed Uganda and the future of Uganda. And of course, in the studios, we have General Tumukunde Henry, of course, presidential candidate under the platform of Renewed Uganda, here with us in the studios. And of course, he's breaking down for us what he thinks of Uganda. And he has been sharing with us his path. He's saying he's a born of Rukungiri, and Rukungiri is not found in South Sudan, it's not found in Rwanda, it's not found in Congo, neither is it actually found in Tanzania or Kenya. It's found here in Uganda, and that is in Western Uganda. He also given us a background, of course, of his education, that he began it from home, so he understands best what a local Ugandan go through, of course, in relationship to the art of education, because he has been there and he has seen it all. Renewed Uganda, a platform that you're using to climb to the next level, to see Uganda change. Why did you choose the word Renewed Uganda? It's believed, according to the different political analysts, that almost every presidential candidate this year has had something about Renewed Uganda, New Uganda, securing Uganda, future of Uganda, something of the sort. And of course, all that has been tilted to the phrase that you initiated at the start, Renewed Uganda. Why?
Yes.
Did you calculate President Museveni's work that you used to be actually part of, and you looked at very many things and you felt this is not right, and I think maybe let's upgrade it to something else? Okay, how did you come up with the first Renewed Uganda?
Well, first of all, it is not only courteous, it is also correct that if you come to improve Record TV, you don't have to start with an impression that there is no even a microphone. It's there. You don't want to give an impression there is no studio. It is there. When NRA that time captured government, Bank of Uganda, physical money had $11 million. I don't know what was in the reserve. I've not managed to get that. But I know what was there, and I know what we started with. So if I come and tell Ugandans that, nothing is on ground, I think that because I can travel from here to Rukunjiri in 4 hours. We used to travel from here to Rukunjiri in 11 hours. So there are some things like the efforts in electricity, power generation, the efforts in infrastructure, and the general growth. If you see Kampala, which used to be 7 hills, I think now the story of 7 hills has ceased to be. I think it's about to become the story of 1,000 hills. It's quite. Now, it is not fair for me to start telling Ugandans that there is nothing on ground. There is something on ground. But what is on ground? And I want to relate it to history. You know, the Chinese were ahead of Europeans in those days. Now, the Europeans were not satisfied with themselves. They expanded and they created something very, very important. This is the combination of capital, science, and the empire. Joining effort. And that's how you see America being occupied by them, using the force of the empire, going there with an intention to raise capital, to live slightly different. The Chinese came to the East African coast, you know very well, much earlier, with bigger, sea barges, very, very big boats and so on. But they never understood the importance of exploiting other people's resources to get richer. That's why you can see Europe is a bit stuck with how to deal with using their own resources to compete with others, because they were used to tapping other people's resources. Of course, they still tap African resources for our own reasons, because we don't manage ourselves very well. Now, so that is the earlier framing of my mind. Do we have to be satisfied with what we have? No. The other point now that shapes our thinking in renewed Uganda, how can we be a people who depends on other people's taxes? When the white people gather their own taxes, there is now a percentage called take care of Africa. Take care of Africa. How can we continue to live on other people's taxes? And even this is shaped so crudely. For example, tragically, you can imagine our people who must die crossing the Mediterranean because they've lost hope in our leaders, and therefore they are going to seek what they call greener pastures, desperately dying and suffering and being mistreated and being, some of them sold as slaves on the African coast. But still, therefore, giving a clear signal. This is the background that influenced the thinking of the renewed Uganda. These people have very little hope in the capacity of African leaders to actually change their lives and give them comfort to stay in the most tenable circumstances. Look at our weather. Look at a beautiful country. Look at all that Uganda offers. And you are struggling to go and live in very cold temperatures, and doing very petty labor jobs. You can imagine. So for me, this is me as I gathered friends to put together Renewed Uganda, and I want to use this opportunity to further invite you to become more involved in the thinking of the Renewed Uganda. Now, this is also, amplified by our failure to tap resources, our own resources. Can you imagine the estimated volumes of mineral wealth in Kirembe? Mine. Some of it, mere depots, can actually pay the debt of Uganda. But you spend more time borrowing money. Every time I sat in parliament, every time I sat in cabinet, the whole story was borrowing money from World Bank, borrowing money from Kuwait Fund, borrowing money. That is what we work through in Parliament and in Cabinet almost on a weekly basis. The next question is, when do you ever intend to tap your own wealth? And when do you ever intend to live on your own? And therefore give hope to your people who are seeking solutions elsewhere, greener pastures elsewhere, to have confidence in providing solutions to their problems. Now, all this is compounded. This is what compounded our thinking by the fact that, for example, peculiarly, we are still one of the biggest population growing centers in the world. Uganda actually almost offering a lead in this very factor. And therefore bringing in an important fundamental question. And this is that we have 1.5 million children being manufactured every year. And it amplifies into having, 9.8 million, which should have been 10.8 million voters. Now, this is therefore the burden of a country like Uganda, and I think largely the burden of Africa. So these are the informing factors about the manifesto you are going to receive in the shortest time. Now then the next question is, what do you want to do with these children? They need more hospitals. They need more schools. They need more classrooms. They need jobs. They need to be given assurances that actually we have them in mind. Actually, if you will notice, wherever I am, I say something about these young people. How much attention do we give to them? How much space do they have in the national budget? In fact, in the subject of resources, I jumped failure to tap even what is obviously ours, like the oil, which we have on surface, but we spent 6 years negotiating a contract, taxes, and we are paid $13 million. Imagine 6 years of negotiating, and we are paid $13 million. I want to rush to get back to these young people. These young people should not be excited by tear gas politics. You see, tear gas politics can be really diverting. Yes, because the only thing Ugandans know about me is that Museveni arrests me. And I'm sure Museveni feels good about it.
All right, I would like to say we shall be taking a short commercial break, of course, and when we get back, we'll actually be breaking down the detail in relationship to the renewed Uganda manifesto. In the studio today, we're so delighted to have the man himself. It's not a rumor. He's here with us, and of course, is roaring onto the comfort of the screens of your television what he thinks actually Uganda should be. A very good morning.
Tonight.
I grew up without knowing my blood parents, but I was privileged to have the family God gave me. But during my adolescence, I was separated from them. As a slave, I was alone. I was away from those who loved me. That was when I became very close to God. That's when I met Caleb. It's like God gave me relief.
I think your friendship with Caleb is admirable.
Tonight.
The Promised Land.
You don't want to miss it. Hello ladies and gentlemen, eno ye 97.7 Record FM tusabula hits all day. Wakati mutima gwa Kampala with the best shows nga tutandika ne UG Breakfast Show akawuwo okuva ku 12 mpaka 1 z'okumakya The Hit Club omubezi sawa 4 mpaka mwendezo obutondo, the big evening ababa sawa 9 mpaka imwe yakawungeze, the hot 7 at 7 countdown mwetubulira nyimbe singo kuja, the hottest and the biggest songs weno ku 97.7 ate the love at heart omukwano mumbeo etandika sawa 2 mpaka 7 ogwekiro late night kusoba obuwomi wa radio esengekeddwa 97.7 Record FM tusabula hits all day.
Welcome back from the break, and we're glad you're still watching the Daybreaker Show. My name is Isaac Alupotakwenya, and in the studios, of course, today, for those who have just joined us, we have General Tumukunde with us. He's the leader of the Renewed Uganda platform and a presidential aspirant for the 2021 elections. I would like to say to those who have just joined us, feel free to follow us on our social media platforms. That's Record TV Uganda on Facebook, Record TV Uganda on Twitter, and Record TV Uganda on YouTube. I would like to say, of course, one more time, Record TV Uganda on Facebook, Record TV Uganda on Twitter, and Record TV Uganda on YouTube. This show is being streamed across, and of course, you can actually watch this show at the comfort of your phone from wherever actually you could be seated, or even those who actually seated somewhere else. You can actually catch shows on other platforms. That is channel 221 in StarTimes, channel 819 on Go TV. Then very many of you own a free-to-air decoders, channel 04, of course, on free-to-air. Today we are discussing about the manifesto of Renewed Uganda, but of course having the bearing of the future of Uganda as a country. Almost every presidential candidate has been speaking about the future of Uganda, renewing Uganda, yes, reclaiming the future. Everything is about Uganda and the future that we wish to see. And today we have General Tumukunde in the studio, of course, sharing with us his dream for Uganda if Ugandans give him what we call the mandate to sit in Uganda's topmost seat. Getting back to the basic. You've given us the history of a man born in Uganda, a man bred in Uganda, a man who studied in Uganda. There's a section of Ugandans that has for long believed that President Museveni, there's a section, this is not again hidden stories, there's a section of Ugandans who believe President Museveni is not a Ugandan. And they said he came with his people who are ruling them from Rwanda. That one is not hidden news. It has been all over, and I'm sure even him himself, he has had that. That's why actually it was necessary to get the history about where you were born from and your walk through to where you are today. But now, having served for very many years under President Yoweri Kaguta Museveni, today you are returning and you're demanding to run against your former boss. Should Ugandans trust you? And what assurance do you give them?
Well, I just wanted to conclude my point about suffering now being the reasons why people vote us. When I traveled in eastern Uganda, in the areas of Kachumbara, areas of Bukede, Kumi, and I went to Soroti, actually largely undercover, the Bugisu, even Soronko, Nandarazi, and went to Kedi and South Udama, all these places. The only thing they know about me, Budaka. When I asked him, I said, Tumukunde? He said, the man who was arrested. I'm sure President Museveni enjoys this, that we gave him power, a machine of the state, and he uses actually to really torment us. Yes, we get seriously offended and tormented. Yes, you can imagine the reason why he's president is because I lost my leg, which, by the way, my leg associates me with the disabled. I have a shared constituency. I was on a stretcher for almost 9 months in war and I lost my leg. I've always tried to remind myself whether Museveni lost even a toe or a nail in this struggle, which he calls his. So for us who modeled him into power, we are now the victims of actually why he is in power. So back to, I want to dissuade Ugandans from, actually my being a prisoner also exposed me to, I've always sent my message to the people of Ruzera. What a terrible living state of circumstances. I saw a documentary on Al Jazeera on Zambia, prison in Zambia, and I related it to Uganda. I mean, you can't believe it. Yes, packed up, sharing 2 pieces of cloth if you are very lucky. You know, singing the whole day instead of being actually trained to be useful when they get out of prison. And this is young people who come, whose relatives come to see them before COVID came in, helpless relatives who have got to spend money trying to see them through court. And, you know, even it's so shocking that the most of the majority who are in Ruzera are the young Ugandans who live in ghettos who do not manage to get defense from, you know, lawyers because they can't afford them. Actually, I'm working to see if we can get a charity that can actually defend it. And because of this, they go for, you know, what they call pre-bargaining, because you've been on remand for 5 years. You know, you've been on remand for 5 years. So you go for pre-bargaining, you accept a case that is being attached to you just because you want to serve and leave because you've been on remand for so long. And I feel that these young children have their mothers, they have their fathers, they have their brothers, some of whom had hope in them that maybe they could pay them school fees. People who migrated in villages in search of a better life. In search of a better life. A state of helplessness. You know, when we are shaping policy, I think giving you the statements about policy is not as important as telling you the reason why this policy is policy according to us. So I'm giving this important background. So I want to dissuade Ugandans from looking at my suffering as the reason why I must be, you know, voted. Yes. You can imagine when Bobby Wine was leaving a nomination, I saw somebody just from nowhere throw out the person who had just been given and rush to break a glass. There was no reason whatsoever. But because the trend and pattern of things are necessarily violent, everyone believes that to be rewarded in your force for being a good leader, you are counted on how uncalculatedly violent you are. You know, or sometimes actually things that narrow us. So, for example, where I come now to the story I'm telling you, boils down to the role of courts, the role of the security forces, especially the law and the prisons. You're talking about courts, prisons, and the police. That's why they call the law and order sector of the Republic of Uganda. How comfortable are we with it? For me, this will come out as a point in our manifesto. We may not have as many pages. For me, what I want Ugandans to know about me is that I, who offers the leadership of renewed Uganda, have gone through these all circumstances. Like I said, I was disabled on a stretcher. As Oito Joke attacked Ruwero, I was on a stretcher. You can imagine the state of helplessness. Although we lost him, unfortunately. These are also leaders we have lost because of bad leadership. Yes, bad leadership. If Uganda was moving straight, we need not have lost the late David Oide Ojok. I've been to his home in the Apache area, Rolo. As I've been to Obote's home, I met Obote's sister Jane. You can imagine, she lives in a horrible hut. In fact, I'm trying to mobilize people that we can. Although that does not solve the fundamentals. So I don't want to mix issues. The law and order sector. You can imagine Akuro pursuing to General Tumukunde. This is what now they call the growth of law and order. Akuro and my ADC. You know, we are now sandwiched between the man we put in power, who is quite mounted in power. Because we are young and naive. I feel so. And we lost our comrades. No, I never regret liberating Uganda. Not really. But we lost our comrades. The late Bagara, the late Ruberezas, the Seguyas. People who would have spoken and actually put challenge to anybody wanting to take us where they want. We lost them. We lost others to HIV. This is a sad story. We lost some in Bulemez. We lost the population. Now we mount you, use all this just simply to turn us into captives and people whose lives are perpetually threatened. So that is the law and order sector. What have we achieved? When I write a manifesto, you be sure my circumstances and the circumstances that seem to cover Uganda, like being in prison until you get so tired, we have to feature. And then the disabled state that I am in, it also incites me, it brings me closeness to the disabled people of Uganda. And I know what it means, for example, to be helpless on a stretcher and be in a hospital, either in the bush or elsewhere, for so long. Therefore, I also understand the importance of health. Why hospitals have to be correct. Yes, why? And then it brings us to an important issue. The issue of balancing expenditure. You know, I think because we deal with other people's money, we've lost the importance of money and where you press it. You know very well when you wake up, sir, you sit and say, Wanange, for the little money I have, where can I press its bets to be able to reach work and have my family running? But if you are getting this as free money, and this will also bring us issues like corruption, if you are getting this as free money, you will never know the importance of money. And especially also if you live on state resources. If you are fueled by the state resource and you are sometimes clothed by the state resource, you do not value the importance of money. So when we are deploying the little, you remember we are not good at creating wealth. We are good at spending even in spending other people's money. How do we balance? How do we balance where we spend our money? For example, when do the youth of Uganda, who are the majority, become a great feature of focus? Become a great feature of focus when it comes to deciding the budget of the Republic of Uganda, which largely spends other people's money, and which largely survives because we import. And which largely survives because we've got very heavy costs from Mombasa to Kampala as compared to the costs between. The multiplying effect of all these leaves certainly a seriously disabled economy.
Well, we have seen the NRM government actually in the recent past move ahead to allocate. Actually, we have big allocation for the youth of Uganda, and they've always put in money on youth through different projects. For example, the youth fund, which was actually put there a few years back, whereby youth were actually told to form groups and register. But after every financial year, when they do a review back, it has always been confirmed that this money doesn't change the local communities. What do you think is not right with the current system of government? Because money is allocated, but at the end of the day, when you look at it after 1 year, either the youth end up being arrested for actually not being in position to pay back the money, or something related to that. And what would Renewed Uganda offer as a better alternative to the youth in Uganda?
See, Renewed Uganda, before you go to the youth, I want also to tell you, do you value money? For example, Operation Wealth Creation spends $100 million every year. That is over 360 billion. I want to ask you a fundamental question. Even for where they have given very, very serious attention, for example, in supplying coffee plantation, coffee seedlings, have you heard that actually the production of coffee in Uganda has increased tremendously? Actually, coffee is still superseded by donations from diaspora to relatives in Uganda, which is part of what shapes our budget. And it is even overshot by tourism, where we don't spend. But my main question is, where does this money go? Is it even largely because of corruption? It can be largely because we don't value money, we don't press money appropriately, we don't seek for accountability. Many things, the most easy word here is corruption. Corruption. Let me tell you, there is also something called leakages. Leakages, misplacement of funds. Yes, where the most uncalculated, pressings of priorities. Yes, and in any case, do we even care that this is our money? Could it be because we don't make most of this money we get from other people's taxes? These are fundamentals that, although we may not have all the sentences and space in the manifesto to express ourselves, when I get an opportunity like this, all I want to earmark and highlight is that I am conscious and very, very, very concerned about even the little money we make, where do we press it? I've been hearing the growth of industry. Thank you very much. Industry focusing on what? For example, if this industry was to improve, like I wanted wealth creation money to expand on coffee production, I would want that this industry focuses on adding value to what we must produce. For example, cocoa coffee. And now back to your question. The youth and the money we give to them, which is also 100 million. And the women, 100 million. The next question is, do people know even why they get this money? Do they deploy it? I was in Rukunjiri and I was invited by a young man. I was looking for projects to give support from my personal pocket. And this young man said, I found in a project. In my local languages, I have a project. I said, oh, how nice. I went to Rukunjiri, this man's local area. I was a minister, because even who you lie no longer matters. I found that he had borrowed 30 piglets. And I could tell, because I'm a farmer, my brother, I am a farmer, I could tell that these piglets have no natural constituency in what he calls his farm. And when I asked him and I said, is this your farm? He said, no, that he borrowed it from a friend. In short, to actually ferami. You know what they call ferraring in Uganda? Ukfera is the smartness that achieves to extract a resource from you to another pocket just because of the smartness of the mind. Now, back to it. How is this money packaged? Because you could think about money like we have money to borrow in all these banks. How is this money packaged? This youth money, which you so much sing of, is not easy to access. And it is actually allocated through systems that have nothing to do with the discipline of financial institutions. You're having an administrative leader in a district giving away this money. I wouldn't mind if you recommended the giving of this money after evaluating something. There are no standards. This young man who is borrowing money is not even trained to understand the reason why he's borrowing the money, or even skilled into the art of the deployment of other people's money. It's not their money. They are not even educated to the importance of repayment, because this is supposed to be a rotating fund. Now, for us, the Wanyankore have a saying, the Wahoro where I come from, that Ogwachizungu gwito tajiri, that Muzungu's job, you just show your face. Actually, for us, yes, that if you don't go, that's when you are counted wrong. But if you show your face, meaning they were dodging work. Now, in the same manner, I think we just press money in some of these budget areas. Even issues like performance auditing, we must live like other people live. Yes, performance auditing. After so many years of spending cororos, or a cororo. This here you see, the value of it is spent on wealth creation. My main question is, do you ever audit whether we are making an impression, or where this money is making an impression on the economy, or on the people you targeted? Because there is always maybe change of names. Now I'm told there is what they call emyoga in a local language. Emyoga actually is what I would call skills. Now you ask yourself, how is it being applied? And what is new that was not existent in the old, wealth creation? Every election, we've got something, and you see Ugandans feeling, and I was really disheartened. Filling forms, presenting I don't know what, forming cooperatives, forming circles to benefit from a new idea now called emyoga. What is so special with emyoga that is new, that we must give attention to, that was not in the yesterday's program called Entandikwa or Wealth Creation? Oh, is this sloganeering? I'm sure you remember in the days of, you were here discussing Pan-Africanism, in the days of our old leaders, move to the left. Africa must unite now. Fundamentals, nothing. So now for us, what I think we have majored in and we are most identified for is because we have a new name every electoral time. And I want to encourage our people, really. The wananchi who I run through, who are busy asking me the progress of emyoga and so on. I want them to spend less time on this matter and actually go and grow more food for themselves. Because the essence of the matter, that these are not properly structured programs, they may not generate results for anybody. And that's when I come in with my great idea about removing the hole and the grass thatched house. It will feature.
All right, let's get now to check out, because some of the messages that are coming through on our Twitter, Facebook, and other social media accounts. And of course, there's a question here that I've actually noted that I would like actually to throw to you, General. It comes from one gentleman by the names of Chiweke. Yes, Kasim. And he says, you have been an Isobos, the custodian of safe houses in Uganda, the safe houses that have turned out to be torture chambers for Ugandans. With the growing brutality in the security forces, how can you convince Ugandans that you're going to be their safety?
It's called Chiweke Kasum.
Yes.
You want me to answer it now? Or later on? You want me to answer it now?
Yeah, that's the question that I actually brought in.
Yes. Now, you see, we need to be judged. When we do difficult jobs for Ugandans, we need to be judged accordingly. I handled and managed the most delicate operation of terrorism, covering a sector of our religion, one of our religions called the Islamic faith. When anything terrorist was also called Islamic, I methodically dissected the Islamic faith from terrorism. Even the Wakonjo from terrorism. Now, gentlemen, be fair to those who do you these jobs. How would I have been in Chiburi yesterday with every comfort? How would I have been in Chiburi yesterday with every comfort if it was that the Muslims were of the view that I was part of the reason why they were being tormented, and that I was one of the reasons why there was such a great mix between the Islamic faith and the reasons why terrorism was a reality in Uganda. About safe houses. How about the people we captured throwing bombs? They are in town. We took them through the processes of justice, methodically. You know, you had better be fair to us.
Okay. Yes, still, of course, coming through, there's also this other particular question. You know, you have a great history in this country. And I would say very many people actually look at you as the face of this race, having the fact that you are the recent person to part ways with your former boss, whom every other presidential candidate is eyeing and displacing. The big question on the ground is, if you lost this election come 2021, what would be your next step in this country? Would you run to exile?
You know, strategists have got one peculiarity.
Yes.
Strategists spend more energies designing the most immediate operation while casting appropriate attention to what else is another option. However, for good strategies, you need to spend more energies. We have to give every hope to what is most in front of us. Winning elections. That is what, for me, I would want to give every effort. And I must confess, I won't have a long time with you. You can see the pressure coming to me. That's what I'm attending to. Now, there is also typical questions from Ugandans. Now they forgot to ask me whether I'm related with Museveni. About what will happen after this election is not something that has to be, expounded in a studio. No. For now, what is our most important
is to win the elections.
Is to win the elections. And to help Ugandans to understand that what wins the elections is not because campaigns have been properly conducted. There will not be any campaign, to be very honest. To call on them to, for once, make a decision. I want to do winding up remarks because I have to go. And I want to tell them, and again repeat, that it's up to you now. To take your country where you want to take it, or continue lamenting.
My last question for the day.
Yeah.
Do you believe in Uganda's electoral commission? Is it independent, as it's called, Uganda's independent electoral commission?
You see, some words even add more questions. Why call it independent anyway? Is it because you presume it is not going to be independent? All I can tell you is that electoral commission is composed of very competent people. My next question is, are they influenced? Are they not?
All right. I'd like to say that, of course, that all of you are catching us, of course. We have had here, I would say, the President General of the Renewed Uganda platform, and he has just told you his phrase. I would like to pick from his phrase. The electoral commission that we have in Uganda is very competent. But the question that should be asked, are they influenced? Yes, it's big, and I would like to say it brings us, of course, the end of our today's, of course, a session of UG Paul's Extract. My name is Isaac Olupot Akonya, and from me and the crew that made this possible, we wish you a blessed weekend. Go vote, but remember, Uganda is bigger than all of us. The choice is in you to make the change you want or to maintain the president that you have.
Remember to invite